You know, this is the hardest part of a video, is welcoming you in. So welcome to my, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Today is tax day here in the US. I'm sure a couple of you just panicked as you realized you forgot to file your taxes. To my non-American friends out there, tax day is when we watch our money fly out of our pants and go to the government, who I'm sure will spend the money wisely. Oh, I'm sure. This may shock and appall you, but your boy FJ, his job is in accounting. And so for the last couple of months, I've been up to my ears in tax returns. It's kind of funny because accounting is probably the job that my personality and temperament is least suited to, and yet here I am. The most interesting thing about doing tax returns is that you get to meet a bunch of different people because everyone's got to do taxes. And it's kind of fun. The tax code is kind of fun to think about. Anyway, I am really testing my audience today, aren't I? By going on and on about taxes. Watch it, Frank. Watch what you're doing. What are you doing? Actually, this whole channel is going to switch over now to tax advice. This job is also surprisingly emotionally draining. You know, it's not like I'm there to be their therapist or whatever, but sometimes it can feel like that because you can tell, especially with older people, a lot of them don't have anyone to talk to. And so when they have the chance to go get their taxes done, I realize in that moment that I'm probably their only emotional outlet for the day. This older lady in her 90s, she lives in a trailer and she can't really get out of the house. So I went and I picked up her stuff, her tax documents, and then I brought it back to her once it was done. And I ended up just sitting there with her for about an hour and a half, and she told me the story of her life. And what was weird about it is that, you know, when you're doing people's taxes, you see when they were born, and she and I had the same birthday. And she was 64 on the day I was born. That's incredible to think about, that when I was born, she was over twice as old as I am now. Yeah, she told me about, you know, her 3 marriages and told me the slightly disturbing story of when her husband died a few months ago. Then there's just the emotional thing of having to tell someone you owe, you know, $10,000 to the IRS. That's emotionally draining, having to break the news, oh, sorry, you owe a bunch of money. The most interesting client so far, I think, is I did the tax return for a guy who won over $1 million in the lottery. And he won it through like a pick 4, where you pick 4 numbers, and he got them all in a row. And he was telling me the story of how those numbers just came to him, and it was like he was seeing them everywhere. He saw it on a building, and he saw it on a license plate, and then he looked at his phone, and the last 2 numbers were the first 2, and then the percentage of the battery left. He said he felt this feeling that he'd never felt before in his entire life. And he just had to buy these lottery tickets. And he bought like $200 worth of tickets and hit it and won over $1 million. Of course, between federal and state tax, he owed about $500,000 of that. But it was weird. I could almost feel this aura around him. Was it just a pure coincidence? I'm sure many would just say, yeah. Or was there some kind of intuitive something or other that he just tapped into and followed it, and the universe gave him $1 million? Moving on from taxes. Get them done, folks. Do your civic duty. My last video, I asked about what you would do if you lived 300 years or whatever. It was kind of a dim outlook. A lot of you didn't want to live 300 years. You thought it was just too much. Like, life is so much suffering. But then I would say it's like a 70-30 split. The other 30% were like, yeah, that would be great because I could learn so much and, you know, do all this stuff. And I think maybe that just reflects on your general outlook on life, if you'd want to live 300 years or not. Is life primarily this thing that you suffer through, or is life this great opportunity where you can exist. This is not to throw shade at those of you who said you wouldn't want to live for 300 years. Throwing shade is a slang term, by the way. It means being disrespectful. All right, so what do you say we do a Q&A session right here, right now? Light Ride says, what do you perceive to be the biggest downside of being an INFJ? Well, clearly the biggest downside of being any personality type is that inferior fourth function. So for INFJs, that's extroverted sensing. I talk about it in that video. INFJs can't see the trees for the forest. Bettina Borg Cardona says, do you find that INFJs are into music in a certain way? Well, I think every human basically likes music. My hypothesis here is that as INFJs with extroverted feeling, we need outside sources in order to express ourselves. And so I don't mean like we create it. I mean, we need to consume art in order for our emotions to be expressed. Laura O'Neill says, I took the MBTI test again and it seems like I'm a combination of INFJ and INFP. Is that possible? No. This whole INFJ-INFP confusion comes from these tests that have this binary thing of J or P at the end, as though that was a function in and of itself, as though if you have the J at the end, it means that you're, straight and orderly and whatever, and P means that you're more loose and fancy free. No, that's not really what it means. Here's the quick version of what that letter at the end means. That means, what is your first extroverted function? I just keep this by my side for quick reference. The J at the end means that the judging function is going to be the first extroverted function. So if that's a P at the end, then that means the perceiving function is going to be the first extroverted function. You see? It has nothing, it's not something you take on its own. The J or the P tells you how to interpret the other two letters and figure out what the function stack is. Right? Get it? It's not so simple as, sometimes I'm more J, sometimes I'm more P. No, if you switched between INFJ and INFP, that would mean, one day my first two functions are introverted intuition and extroverted feeling, and then the next day it's introverted feeling and extroverted intuition. It doesn't really work that way. Frank James, what's your zodiac sign? A lot of people have asked this. I'm a Sagittarius, but I'm not really into the zodiac or astrology or any of that. I don't even really know where the other ones are in relation to the year, what the other zodiac are. I think Cancer's June sometime. Marcus asks, are long-term care insurance premiums deductible? Yeah, you put them on your Schedule A. Mark Clark says, what general things scare you off romantically speaking that might scare you off because they represent vulnerabilities that you're afraid to open up about? To be honest with you, like to really expose my soul here, I think I'm afraid in relationships of people who seem to be like normal and seem to have their life together and don't have anything wrong with them. For me, knowing myself intimately, I feel like I have so many problems, and if I were to date someone who I perceived as having things much more worked out than I do. I mean, everyone's got problems, yeah, but if someone else appeared to be like a very competent human being who knew what they were doing in life, I would be scared S-less to date that lady, because in my mind, I would project into the future where she would see right through me and see how far ahead she is of me and everything, and judge me for it and break up with me halfway through the first date. All right, so as I mentioned in my last video, the very next video, yes, the very next one will be my Big 5 test results from understandmyself.com, and I hope you'll tune in and see how messed up I truly am. All right, give me a thumbs up if you liked it. If you haven't subscribed already, you really need to get on that and subscribe. All right, you all have a happy tax day. Until next time, y'all stay cool.